Welcome to our series of videos to introduce the items on the agenda of the IBES 8 plenary. With this video, I'm going to introduce agenda item 6, which is focused on financial and budgetary arrangements of the platform. This responds to decision IBES 7.4, in which the plenary invited pledges and contributions to the trust fund, as well as in-kind contributions, adopted a revised budget for 2019 and 2020, and a provisional budget for 2021 amounting to 8.7 million, and requested the Executive Secretary, under the guidance of the Bureau, to report to IBES 8 on the expenditures from 2018 to 2020 and on activities related to fundraising. So I will be reporting on all of these items in that order. IBES in 2019-2020 has continued to receive in-kind support from all of its communities of experts out there, and if we estimate these in-kind contributions, we reach an amount of between 5.4 and 10.7 million, depending on whether we consider their contributions to be 10 or 20% of their time. And in-kind contributions from organizations as well as governments have amounted to about $2 million in 2019 and in 2020. But of course, the bulk of the resources have come in cash to the trust fund from governments. First of all, IBES has received contributions from 24 governments between 2019 and 2020. And note at the bottom of the table here also contributions from 3 donors from the private sector, and with a little arrow here also a contribution which corresponds to IBES having won an award, which is the Win-Win Gothenburg Sustainability Award. So if we look now at the totals received per year, we see that in 2019, IBES received 7.1 million. In 2020, IBES received 4.0 million. So the difference between 2019 and 2020 corresponds to 2 things. First, to the receipt in 2020 of the European Union contribution corresponding to 2 years. That is marked with a blue arrow that you see here facing the contribution from the European Union. But the difference between the 2 years also comes from the fact that in 2020, IBES received 1 million less contributions from governments compared to 2019. I will be coming back to this. We move on to expenditures, starting with 2018. All of these tables are structured the same way, with the 3 main components of the budget. 1, which is the meeting of the platform bodies, 2, which is the implementation of the work program, and 3, which is the secretariat costs. And we compare the approved budget to the final expenditures, and the last column is the balance. So the conclusion for 2018 is that there was an amount of 2.1 million, which was saved. That comes from a series of savings on conference venues, for example, due to generous in-kind contributions from governments and others. Savings also on meetings that were, in some cases, shorter than the 5 days that were planned, and also savings on the budgeted proportion of participants from developing countries, since, as you know, IBES always prepares budgets that are very conservative from that point of view. And of course, there is many more information and details that is presented in the IBES 8.5 document presented to plenary. So now we move to the expenditures for 2019. It's the exact same structure, and the conclusion here is that there was savings from 3.3 million in 2019, which is quite sizable. Obviously, it comes from the same series of savings that I just mentioned for 2018. But in addition to this, there were also a couple of major meetings that were moved from 2019 to 2020, and also the technical support units budget for the new task forces had been costed for the entire year 2019, but in fact those technical support units were established quite late in the year, and of course all of this represents a sizable savings as well. We now reach 2020, and here, with the same exact structure as mentioned before, the saving now is 3.9 million almost, and here this is a very large savings, and this of course is the context of the COVID-19 pandemic, and it results from the replacement of virtually all of the physical meetings by virtual meetings, but also by the postponement of some author meetings, so some quite large meetings, to 2021 if possible. So we now reached the proposed revised budget for 2021, and so there have been a few adjustments in this budget, which I will detail in a second here. So you can see that IBES 7 had approved a provisional budget of 8.7 million, and that the revised budget is actually lower, 1.7 million lower than the provisional budget. So these are some of the explanations behind this. Of course, one source of saving is the fact that IBES 8 is held virtually. There are also quite a few savings in the work program, 1.1 million, the bulk of the savings actually. So of course, as I just mentioned, it comes from holding virtual meetings in 2021 and also from postponing some meetings from 2021 to 2022. There have also been some revisions in Secretariat staff costs. There is a new post at the P2 level, which is proposed for the communication portfolio. This is to accommodate for the increased responsibilities with the significant growth in communication activities. And there is also a proposed reclassification, still within communication, from the G5 to the G6 level. And this is to really reflect the more realistic set of responsibilities for this post within the growing portfolio of communication as well. In spite of this proposal, we still have a lowering in the cost of the Secretariat costs here, and this is because of a more realistic costing of the Secretariat benefits, as we now do in our new way to reflect Secretariat costs. So we now look at the 2022 budget and 2023 budget. The same logic is applied as the logic I just described. We come up with a budget amounting to 9.3 or so million for 2022 and 9.5 million for 2023. Here are some of the assumptions that were made to come up with these budgets. There would be yearly plenary meetings. For IBES 9, we have March/April 2022 in mind, and for IBES 10, that would be May 2023. Otherwise, these two budgets take into account the finalization of the three ongoing assessments from the first work program, and they also take into account the undertaking of three assessments around the three topics of the new work program up to 2030, also taking into account the revised timeline with this 3-year schedule for the two assessment of nexus and transformative change, and the shift by 1 year of the business and biodiversity assessment according to the table which is presented in the document 8/2. There is also all of the work proposed by the task forces as well as the secretariat costs, which I just presented for 2021. So now looking at the broad picture, where do we sit financially speaking for IBES? So IBES had on the 1st of January 2021, 7.9 million on its bank account. And if we now carry out this simulation, we add estimated annual income of 5.5 million. We remove the 7 million, which is the estimated cost for the work program for 2021, and we reach a positive balance of 6.4 million estimated to be left at the end of 2021. So that is that same amount that we use starting on the 1st of January 2022, and there we do the same simulation. We add 5.5 million, which is an estimated income. We remove the cost for 2022, as we just saw in the previous table, which is estimated to be 9.3 million. And here we see that we would end the year 2022 with 2.6 million. So we start the following year with the same amount and conducting the same exact exercise here. We see that at the end of 2023, we reach a negative balance, meaning that an additional 1.4 million would need to be raised in 2023 to balance the budget. So projections show then that assuming an annual savings of about 1.3 million, an additional 1 million also would need to be raised every year in average to have a balanced budget in future years after 2023. So, in addition to all of the reporting regarding the budget, decision IBES 7.4 also asked for draft decision on guidelines to regulate contributions to the work of the platform from the private sector and non-governmental stakeholders. And this is this decision that has been prepared here, and that is in front of the IBES 8 plenary, in which the plenary, recalling the financial procedures, decides that neither logos nor names of private sector or non-governmental stakeholders, donors, may appear in the reports of the platform, and there is a footnote defining what reports mean for IBES. And the decision goes on and states that all donors providing financial contributions to the trust fund, including private sector and non-governmental stakeholders, would be acknowledged on the website of IBES. Progress has continued to implement the fundraising strategy, which is coordinated by the head of development, who is funded by the government of France. A series of prospective actions have continued. They are described in the document, and fundraising efforts from the private sector so far have reached about $1 million if we include both the contributions already received on the trust fund together with the pledges already made. So in summary, the plenary will be invited to adopt the revised budget for 2021, which amounts to about 7 million, to adopt the proposed budget for 2022, which amounts to about 9.3 million, and the provisional budget for 2023, which amounts to 9.5 million, though those would be further revised as needed at IBES 9, as is always the case. And the plenary will also be invited to approve the draft guidelines regulating the contributions from the private sector, which I just mentioned in my previous slide. So all of this having been taken into account, and with this proposed budget, then 2021 and 2022 would end up, as we've seen, with a positive balance. An additional 1.4 million would need to be raised for 2023, and about 1 million additional income would then need to also be found in the following years. And with all of this, the work program up to 2030 would be implemented as approved. So with this, I conclude my report to IBES 8 on budget and financial arrangements for the platform, and thank you for your attention.